Durag Wisdom, folks, and welcome to Y2K 17.07.02. Just a couple of days before we celebrate, this country of ours celebrates its 241st birthday. And the other night, Friday night, poor Rachel Maddow, my heart went out to her. Maybe she was being sarcastic when she said this, but she's talking about the birth of Trump Putin, but she hardly ever talks about that creep. She talks about what he does, what his administration is doing, and all the stuff that's related to that. This creep, Trump, will say stuff with the purpose of making people outraged. He'll say the most gross, the guy's a thug, he's a, lower than the turd people. And he says things that basically distract from what the true purpose, what they're doing. All he has to do is say something and everybody goes wacky. And the reason this happens, folks, is because this is a showman, okay? If I'm not mistaken, I don't know if he still has his SAG card or if he even want to have a SAG card, but he's an entertainer, okay? He's a sideshow barker. He's a snake oil salesman. And his whole purpose and his whole understanding is to enrich himself, to take total control. And unfortunately, he is the President of the United States. Now, I don't accept that. I don't accept that title, but he's using that as any showman would. He is taking full advantage of the office of the President. I mean, he knows that everything the President says and does is going to be big news. Oh, the President cut a fart at the correspondence dinner. That'd be on the news, I'm telling you. So, he's going to do things that are going to distract us. And Rachel Maddow, she seemed very depressed that night. She says, we have a new type of political, she called it, I think, a political method or whatever it is, the Trumpist method, attack with the most obnoxious, the most unprofessional thing any president would ever say. That creep does it. Now, I have some advice for Rachel Maddow. She should take her own advice. Pay attention to what they do, not to what they say, because everything they say is a lie. Our White House press corps should stop covering anything the creep says. It's like that stupid horror movie, It. The only way one of the only ways you could defeat the thing is you had to ignore it. If you were afraid of it, then it was powerful. But in the end, if you just stood there and ignored it and said, you're nothing. And that's what we have to do to this creep. Anything that comes out of his mouth shouldn't be news. Because the news that's coming out of his mouth is nothing but bullshit. Oh, don't get me wrong. Everything that he says turns out to be quote-unquote important because of his position. And he knows that. But it's up to us to take control. And that's what we have to do. We have to take control. We have to direct the argument. We have to direct the discussion. As long as he has control of everything, he doesn't care what we say about him. But if we take control, he's not going to like it. So not only should the press corps boycott this creep and his creepettes, but there should be no more coverage about the bullshit that he says. When we know it's really absolute bullshit. And we should concentrate on what these creeps are doing. And that includes stocking the Supreme Court with another right-wing shithead who's trying to blur the distinction between church and state. And if any other Supreme Court justice goes, this guy's going to have a chance to irrevocably change the court for the next generation. They're trying to, as Rachel Maddow said, they're trying to discredit through false news, Fox News, Comey and Mueller. How can these creeps go and, Mueller and Comey are Republicans. Who says Lordy anymore? Lordy! Lordy, Mueller and Comey are Republicans. Conservatives. And thankfully, they're the kind of conservative, I don't agree with conservatism, but they're doing their job. That's what they're doing. Their job. Forget about what my party is. My country, my 241-year-old country is on the brink. So they're trying, Fox News and the National Enquirer and any other fake outlet is trying to spread the news that that Comey and Mueller are tainted, and to kind of build up probably to fire him. Are we going to allow that? Or how about him demanding that people, all the states, turn over all the information on the voters? Do you want your information going to this White House? Your Social Security number? For what? So he could prove there's voter fraud? They're doing voter suppression. That's right. They're messing with the environment. He hasn't shown his taxes yet, the Trumpian creep. He's violating emoluments. And we know he's tainted by Russia because he's trying to cover it all up. If you're innocent, you got nothing to hide. So Rachel Maddow, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, everybody, if you despise this creep as much as I do, if you value your country, this 241-year-old country that still has a ways to go to a pure democracy, if you love your country, my advice, whenever this guy does his thing, uses and abuses the media, this psychopathic creep, ignore that. Concentrate on what this creep in his party is doing, and that's how you counter him. You boycott all his shit, and we concentrate on all the shit they're doing. And that's how we're going to fight these people for now, because this is in the 241st year of the United States of America, we're facing one of the worst, if not the worst now, threat to our way of life. Pay attention to what they do and F what they say.